morning, Dunlap family. I hope you are all doing well and ready to go for another fun-filled day. So today's math lesson, we're going to continue working with decimals, but we're really going to work with fractions. I know that sounds a little weird, a little strange, but remember, fractions and decimals are very closely related. They both show parts of a whole or parts of a group. Fractions are the division problem, fancy division problem, and decimals are the answer to that fancy division problem. All right, so they're very closely related. Today our learning target is I can add fractions with denominators of 10 and 100. And we've talked about this, so this should be review for you. We've done a lot of this in our morning work already. But today I want to talk to you about how this has something to do with decimals, because it does. All right, so for example, let's say I have the number, or I should say the fraction, 2 tenths, and I want to add it to the fraction 2 hundredths. Can I add this together as it is? Absolutely not. Why? Because the denominators are different, okay? I cannot add two fractions that are different sized pieces. They have to be this equivalent fractions. They have to be the same. All right? So if we take a look at it, we need to change one of these to be like the other. Now, if it were me, I would do this one. I would change tenths and make it into hundredths. All right? And so you know how to do this. You're so awesome at this. So I need to make 2 tenths equivalent to something over 100. So how do I do that? How do I go from 10 to 100? Well, multiply by 10. So that means my numerator needs to multiply by 10. 2 times 10 is 20. So I'm going to change this to 20 hundredths. All right, that's all I did was I got an equivalent fraction, and now my denominators are the same. Now I can add them. 20 hundredths plus 2 hundredths is 22 hundredths. Okay, so all you did was you took your original 2 tenths, you got an equivalent fraction of 20 hundredths, and then you can add 20 hundredths plus 2 hundredths equals 22 hundredths. How does this have, what does this have to do with decimals? Well, if you remember, in decimals, the place values, we've been talking about the place values, all right? Our place values are based on, what's the first one? Tenths. What's the next one? Hundredths. Alright, so after the decimal point we do tenths and hundredths. So when we're working with tenths and hundredths up here, it's very easy to convert those into a decimal. So this up here, what we just did, is kind of preparing you for adding decimals next year in 5th grade. Okay, let me show you what I mean. Let's say for just a minute that we want to convert 20 hundredths to a decimal. How would I write 20 hundredths? 20 hundredths plus 2 hundredths. Ooh. All right, got to remember, if it's 2 hundredths, that means I have to have 2 digits after my decimal. So I need to put my 2 here, and what goes here? A 0. So 2 hundredths is going to look like this. When I add those up, watch this. 20 hundredths plus 2 hundredths. Just add them up. 0 plus 2 is 2. 2 plus 0 is 2. Decimal point. I get what? 22 hundredths. What do I get up here? 22 hundredths. 20 hundredths plus 2 hundredths equals 22 hundredths. So writing these fractions is kind of one step, getting you one step closer to being able to add up those decimals. And you'll work more on adding decimals next year. I just want you to see the connection here for right now. Does that make sense? I hope. If it doesn't, you're going to ask me in small groups, right? Okay. All right, so let me erase this. We're going to work just on the fraction part today. Okay, I'll leave the decimal part to your teachers in 5th grade next year. All right, so let's try another one. Let's try, let's see here, 21 hundredths plus 2 tenths. We just did 2 tenths. Let's make it, oh, I don't know, 3 tenths. How about that? Okay, so 21 hundredths plus 3 tenths. Can I add them up together right now just like they are? No. Why? Somebody said it. I'm sure somebody said it. I feel confident. The denominators are different. They are unlike. We need to make them like. We need to make them the same. All right, so we're going to take tenths and we're going to make it into hundredths. So let's think about that. If I have 3 tenths, I want to make it so that my denominator is 100. Okay, so how do I get from 10 to 100? I multiply by 10. So if I multiply my denominator by 10, I need to multiply my numerator by 10. So 3 times 10 is 30. So all I did was I came up with an equivalent fraction. They're equal. Here's my trick question. Which is bigger, 3 tenths or 30 hundredths? Which is bigger? They're the same. All right, they're the exact same amount. That's what makes them equivalent. So up here, I'm not changing the amount, I'm just writing it differently. All right, so I changed 3 tenths and I made it into 30 hundredths. That's all I did, made it into 30 hundredths. But now I can add them up. 21 hundredths plus 30 hundredths equals, you have it? 51 hundredths. Ta-da! You got this. See, we've done this before. Does it look familiar? Okay? Just want you to realize that this is just preparing you next year for when you change 21 hundredths to a decimal. All right? So next year you're going to learn that it's 21 hundredths like this, 30 hundredths is like this, and then when you add these two together, and the really cool thing about decimals is that you line them up based on their decimal point, okay? So we've always been so worried about getting your columns in order, the ones lined up, the tens, the hundreds. Well, it's the same thing. You just want to make sure you have your decimal points lined up, okay? Then you add them up. 1, 5 decimal point, so we have 51 hundredths. See how they're related? Okay, 21 hundredths plus 30 hundredths equals 51 hundredths. Okay, all right. You're gonna try one. I'm gonna do 3 tenths plus 42 hundredths. Okay, just add the fractions. Don't worry about the decimals. You don't need to worry about that. I want you to add 3 tenths plus 42 hundredths. All right, you're gonna pause me and then come back and check your work. Ready? Go. All right, let's see what you came up with. Can I add it the way it is? No. The denominators are different, so I need to make them the same. So I'm going to change 3 tenths into something over 100. Well, what do I do for that? How do I get from 10 to 100? I have to multiply by 10. So that means my numerator has to be multiplied by 10. So 3 times 10 is 30. So I'm going to change 3 tenths to 30 hundredths. Now I can add 30 hundredths plus 42 hundredths is 72 hundredths. Did I get that right? 72 hundredths? All right. So that's what you needed to do. Now, if I wanted to write this as a decimal, it would look different. You didn't have to do the decimals, but I do want to show you what that would look like. All right, so 30 hundredths plus 42 hundredths equals 72 hundredths. All right, see how they're connected? Just a different way, but you're showing the exact same information. All right, so easy peasy. So what you're going to do today is you should have already watched the Pearson video that I have sent to you about this. If you haven't watched it yet, please go back and watch it. And then when you come to small groups, we will work some more together. We will check these problems. Are you ready to write them down, scrap paper? I want you to work on these problems. If you pull up page 647, you are going to work on problems 16, 17, 18, and 19. Okay, so pull up the Pearson pages that I sent to you. You are on 647. You're going to work on 16, 17, 18, and 19, and we will go over those together in small group. All right? Good work today. I will see you soon. Love you. Bye.